just talk about putting Tim in the car and just kind of what went into that. And then we'll get some questions lined up and we'll go to the meeting here in just a second. But just to kind of the thought about how this whole thing started.
Sure. Yeah, I listened to Tim was a little short on some of the fill of the information because there's so much backstory to him and his family and the stuff in the past. So this really had started back in the Gen 6 car when the modifieds had been gone from Martinsville for I don't know 10 years or so, and then the modifieds are going to come back. And I said, man, we need to figure out a way to maybe get you there for that race because he was going to be looking forward to running that race with the modifieds. And I actually talked to Burt Myers as well. This is when we were running a couple full-time cars in Gen 6. And so the idea was to still they did a NASCAR to get them both approved to be at Martinsville, which we did. And then anybody that follows Bowman Gray and those guys knows that we got an inherent storyline immediately, right? So that almost happened for a variety of different reasons. It just didn't. And so, Tim was talking about going to work for Yarborough's back in 1994. And actually, Tim was already working for me kind of part-time with my career. And Ken Glenn, who was a neighbor of mine in Greensboro, was the crew chief for him. And he introduced me to Tim probably in the 92 or 93. And so we've been friends ever since, and just a great guy. And then we got involved with him. Actually, I think it was 2008, which I think is the first year of the Madhouse, and we kind of teamed up with him there and we had the Circle K Thirstbuster car, and he won the championship, and it was just a great scenario. And so we've since worked with him on all kinds of different projects and done some different racing with his backup car at different times with different drivers. And so he's just a fantastic guy and extremely hard worker and just a great race driver. And, in my opinion, race drivers to a certain degree, given the tools, they can compete with a wide variety of people on certain tracks. If we were to take him to a road course, he's probably going to struggle. And maybe even some different size ovals, but he's run modifieds in 3/4 miles and half miles of Bowman Gray. So he's a racer, and it really wasn't much of a stretch. It was just a little bit unique to make your debut at something like the Clash as opposed to someplace like Martinsville. Then we're talking about it.
Yep, gotcha. All right, let's kick it off with some questions here. We'll start with Bob. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rick. Just how long? I mean, was it pretty much a no-brainer for you once they decided the Clash would be there to put him in the car?
Well, so when they started talking about it, immediately, me and Tim started scratching our head, and the thought process was, hey, let's go see the feasibility of it. It was going to depend a lot on whether or not we were running. Was it going to be a third entry as an open, or was it going to be the second car as an open? There's a lot of different scenarios, but we were pretty adamant that we were going to do all that we could do to take them there. It'd been different if it would have been across country because there's a lot more involved, but being that it's local, being that he's a huge following, it just kind of made sense to finalize what we actually started probably 3 or 4 years ago or so, or maybe a little bit. Yeah, probably about that far back to begin with. And, he was talking about, working on the cars, et cetera. And if anybody knows Tim, he's extremely anal. He'll push people out of the way and make sure he's going to touch every piece of that car. So he selfishly has an agenda to touch every piece, make it as good as he feels that he can make it. And that's the way he is with his modified as well. I mean, he's hands-on. So it's cool that he can, work on something that's going to be his car, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And frankly, me and Lisa take some pride in being able to offer that opportunity to Tim because we've known him and his wife and his family for forever. And when me and Robbie started talking about it, I was like, man, we got to figure it out and make it happen.
Tim was talking about how he doesn't read social media and that sometimes he'll pass positive comments on social media about him doing this. How much pressure is put on him for Rick Ware Racing, to get her done versus because of his talent versus going there and this being a really good endeavor? Talk about what it means for Rick Ware Racing and what you see that he doesn't see in himself, that he's so shy about looking at what people are saying about him doing this.
Well, again, which I just mentioned about being a race driver, I view him as a race driver first. Now, Bowman Gray is truly unique in that when we went to the Clash, they laid down fresh asphalt, and it was it was amazing. I couldn't believe that the asphalt stayed in good shape and it was smooth, and there was a lot of grip. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they tear it up and relaid it again. The difference with this is that it is extremely porous. It's very wore out. I'm not so sure you're not, trying to hook up on pieces of the stone in between the asphalt that's gone away. And so, uh, you know, if you've gone there a fair amount and watched those guys qualify on evenings when it has been, cold, more so than normal, there's you have to have a lot of patience. It is so easy to overdrive those corners, which it is in any quarter mile, but especially there. And the exiting is going to be even narrow because you're losing approximately just shy of 3 feet on each side because of the soft wall barriers. But if there's a value to having, I don't know, literally, I don't know, a million laps, around a place, there is an advantage. These are the best guys in the world racing these cars, and so they have good cars and they're good drivers. We're putting our best foot forward. I think he's putting a lot of expectations on himself just because that's the kind of person he is, right? He's one of those guys where I'm not going to go somewhere unless I think I can win, and that's a little bit tougher attitude to have at the Cup level because there's a lot of other guys that have the same attitude, just like in the other short track. But we're trying to give him, I think, all that anybody could. I think he's going to do really well. I think if you look at some of the great drivers that haven't even made the main events the last 2 years, it's not so much a function of they are not driving. It's a function of the whole total package just couldn't get that last thousandth of a second. I mean, the field is so tight. What I like about having him there is it was mentioned earlier. Normally half the crowd that's sold out hates and boos for Tim. The other half immediately love him. But I feel like even the people that may hate him at Bowman Gray are happy for him because they respect what he's done. They respect the tenure and the fact that he's a good race driver, and sometimes you hate good race drivers. And so that portion I like. I think it's good for the overall sport. It's so cool that NASCAR has taken over this track, and they're giving it a coat of paint, but it still has the feel. It still has an old school feel. And if people haven't been there, you can't even, it's like the first time going to Bristol. If you haven't been there, it's hard to equate and explain it to somebody. And it's just going to be a win-win for everybody. And I'm just really excited about it.
Aside from performance, you and Tim have both talked very positively about hopefully how he can run at Bowman Gray. What else are you hoping that he'll get from this experience, being able to run this race?
Well, racers are inherently always looking forward. So, there's talk of, well, what if we could put together something and maybe run the second Martinsville later on in the year? And that's what racers do, right? We're addicts and we're trying to find a way to go do something cool. I think there's a lot of opportunity potentially for that. Is this a scenario that we can build a base of local support and he does this for the next 10 years if it's there? I'm not sure, but what I want him to get out of it is obviously as a former driver that didn't make it, obviously, and his team owner now, I understand what it's like to go do something that you've dreamed about doing. And, running a Cup car for anybody that's grown up around here, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's the holy grail of motorsports. And I'm just glad to be able to be part of being able to give that to him. And the fact that he has his sons there, I brought my kids there at a young age when he was, still racing and winning championships. And for him to be able to have his son there, his family, and for him to be able to be at a place that's kind of his house, I hope he can just absorb it. I hope the weather is fantastic and the place is off the hook, and it may lead to a whole lot more things, and that's definitely a possibility. But for sure, I want him just to absorb it and enjoy it, because as racers, I mean, we're here today, and before we got on this call, we're talking about 2 weeks later at Daytona, and then we got to go straight to him. I mean, you're just always going, you're burning through the moments and the memories. And so I just hope he can just absorb it. And I hope he just has a fantastic run.